Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this festive edition of the Fire Authority. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the Fire Services YouTube page. The Fire Authority does allow filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to use social media during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present, myself included, turns their mobile phone to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place? There is no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting and we will all make our way out by the nearest available fire exits. The muster point is in the car park to the rear of the building. I'd like to start by welcoming Councillor Stefan Fisher, who has replaced Councillor Des Watt on the Fire Authority. So welcome, Stefan. It's fantastic to have you here. So with no further ado, straight on to item number 1, which is apologies for absence and declarations of interest. Would Tamar please report any apologies for absence?
Apologies received from Councillor Boyce.
Splendid. Thank you very much. And does any member at this point wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest they haven't previously disclosed? Fantastic. On to agenda item number 2, which is the minutes of the Fire Authority meeting held on the 25th of June 2025. We are being asked to approve those minutes of the meeting as an accurate record. If any member wants to raise a question on the accuracy of those minutes only, can they do so now? I see no objections, so we will take that as carried unanimously. On that basis, the recommendation to approve the minutes is carried. Shall I sign those now? On to agenda item number 3, which is the chair's announcements. Firstly, I'd like to thank those members who are able to join us at this morning's highly informative Vision 2030 seminar. This was the latest in a series of presentations on a vision that centres on the county remaining one of the fastest growing counties in the country, and in that context, our ability to meet demand in the future, as well as looking at the technology we need to be more efficient and how we continue our drive for sustainability and achieving our net zero targets. There will be regular updates throughout the coming months, and both the Chief Fire Officer and I really do appreciate members' continued engagement with this significant piece of work. I certainly found it a really, really useful session, so thank you to everyone who's been involved in that. I'm a little taken aback that it is already 6 months since my election as chair, and indeed 6 months since the last of these meetings. The service has, over that period, continued to deliver exceptional service to our local communities with finite resources. And I know most newly appointed members have hit the ground running and taken the opportunity to spend time with operational crews, learning about their roles and the equipment used, which in turn will help us when it comes to informing decision making. As there is a sizable agenda before us, I've purposely kept my announcements brief, but I would like to just signpost those that haven't seen the latest 6-monthly update report presented to Cambridgeshire County Council at its meeting on October 21st, which was another action-packed day, so you may not have had the chance to review that. But that report covers many highlights and achievements, and a link will be available in the minutes of today's session. Many of you will be aware from local news reporting and social media that there was a fire at Cambridge University Hospital's Addenbrooke site last weekend. More than 30 firefighters attended the incident, crews from Cambridge, Linton, Huntingdon, Charteris, along with crews from Suffolk, Essex and Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Services arrived to find multiple vehicles alight on the second floor of the main car park. They worked hard to contain the fire and stop it from spreading further, remaining on scene throughout the evening and overnight to continue checking for hotspots and to dampen down the area. No injuries were reported, and a fire investigation to establish the most likely cause of the fire has now taken place. The most likely cause has been determined as a mechanical failure of a diesel vehicle. This is just the most recent significant incident against a backdrop of several others over the summer months, where our crews have demonstrated their skill and resilience. It has also demonstrated the importance of having solid working relationships with our neighbouring fire service colleagues and cross-border agreements. And my heartfelt thanks to all those involved. The latest update from Adam Brooks is that an initial structural survey has now been completed. The car park remains closed, but NCP, who own and manage it, are working hard so that owners can retrieve their vehicles in a staged and safe way. Parking on site remains limited, which, along with the expected industrial action by resident doctors, will cause additional challenges for patients and staff. We will now move on to agenda item 4, which is appointments to committees. Members should note that Councillor Stefan Fisher has replaced Councillor Des Watt on the following committees: the Policy and Resources Committee, the Appointments Committee, and as a substitute on the Appeals Committee. Moving on to agenda item number 5 and a break from hearing my voice. Can I ask John Anderson, our Deputy Chief Fire Officer, to introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I was going to take you through a few of the highlights from the report, and then I'll be happy to take any questions. So in terms of the review of our effectiveness, a full review of the authority's strategic risk strategy, processes and risk register has been undertaken. The Policy and Resources Committee has approved the reviewed strategy and policy. Our internal auditors conduct sufficient audit work to draw reasonable conclusions on the adequacy and effectiveness of the authority's governance arrangements. We have been advised on the implication of the results of the reviews of the effectiveness and governance framework, and a plan to address the weaknesses and ensure continuous improvement of the system is in place. Progress made against governance issue identified in 23-24. 5 assurance assignments were carried out in that time, with positive assurance being taken from reviews of key financial controls, procurement and medium-term financial planning. Although they did not consider the issues raised within the remaining 2 areas, was significant that the services addressed issues raised in reporting in the following areas: contaminants and health and safety, something really the main part that we've done there. We've done a lot of work around estates and other areas to make it as safe as possible for our colleagues that work in the operational arena from contaminants. We've also introduced a new concept fire appliance with a clean cab principle, which means there's no contaminants within the cab area, which is all part of our ongoing commitment to try and keep our firefighters as safe as possible. In terms of estates utilisation, we continue to look to proactively review the use of all our assets and ensure we use them to the best of their abilities and as effectively as possible. In terms of significant governance issues for 24-25, 6 assurance assignments were completed in that time, with positive assurance being taken from reviews of a management recruitment framework, medium-term financial plan and key financial controls. For the reviews, a partial assurance could be taken from IT assets and fleet management. All identified management actions have been agreed with completion timescales in place. The main thing around both IT and fleet was around management of assets and tracking and recording of assets, and we're currently in the process of introducing a new asset tracking software to make sure we're doing that as effectively as possible. In terms of other considerations, the authority continues to deal with governance issues relating to fire control. As I'm sure members are well aware, in September 2024, the service successfully went live with a new mobilising system, and unfortunately, in June 2025, we ended our partnership with Suffolk, and we're now a fully standalone fire and rescue service. We're got some remaining work to do around making the mobilising system as efficient and effective as it possibly can be, and making sure we're utilising everything it can give to us with the new technology that it possesses. And also, we've done a review of our structure of the watches. Now we're a standalone firing service that's been completed and it is up and running now. And a further review will be carried out of the management structures and the command and control within the control room. Vision 2030, that project is in full swing at the moment, and I'm sure members would have listened with interest this morning to the seminar around that. Culture, that's something we've been focusing on for a long time now, and we've done a lot of work around all the different culture reports that have been carried out over the last few years, particularly into the issues found in other services. And we've also established a professional standards board within our service to act as an overarching forum overseeing the investigation of concerns raised with a service and either within the service or from external sources, including not limited grievance, disciplinary complaints and whistleblowing concerns. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee receives biannual reporting from the Professional Standards Board, and the committee chair observes the meetings. We continue to monitor the financial climate and the impact of pay awards may have on our general financial landscape. And in conclusion, based on the opinion of the Head of Internal Audit and our own ongoing work, we are satisfied that our arrangements for governance, risk management and control are adequate and effective. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, John. Members, do you have any questions directly for John? Yes, Councillor Bywater.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to support this report, John. Just a quick question in relation to fire control. How are we getting on with staffing and that? Are we up to complement now? Is it all working okay?
We're not up to complement. We are actually short at the moment. We've had a period of time where following Suffolk leaving and the installation of the new system, it had, be fair, it has had a bit of an impact on morale, and it's been a bit of a challenging time up there. But I firmly believe we're moved on from that now, and we're looking forward to the future. We are currently out for recruitment for control operators to bring us up to establishment. The advert went live today, so that is good, and we intend to get us up. We've had a bit of an issue with sickness, but that is definitely improving now. A lot of the long-term sick are now back at work, so things are a lot more positive than they have been.
Any other questions, members? Yes, Councillor Jamil.
Thank you very much, Chair. I actually, like Simon said, it's an excellent report, and I'm actually encouraged by the auditors and what they say, having seen a process similar to this at my local council. I'm actually quite happy that we're going in the right direction, and the auditors are happy with where we are and working well with them as well. So I think, considering where councils have been in the last few years, I think we're ahead of game, and I'm pleased to see that we've got the results that we have.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, we are being asked to approve for signature by the Chief Fire Officer / Chief Executive Officer and myself as Chair of the Fire Authority, the final version of the AGS, which I think is found in Appendix 1, and for its publication on the website alongside our Statement of Accounts for the same year. I don't know if that's something we want to sign now or whether we can do this after the session, but I think we have broad consent for that, and we'll consider that carried. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. We will move on now to agenda item number 6, which is the annual review of constitutional documents. Can I ask Shaheen, the monitoring officer, to introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. So, members, we review our constitutional documents every year, and we refresh anything that needs refreshing due to changes in the law or best practice or changes in the way we make decisions here at the Fire Authority. And this year, of our suite of documents, we're suggesting changes to 4 of those sets of documents. So I'll introduce each one in turn and then pause after each one for any questions. The first set of changes is to our terms of reference. And the first change you'll see at page 37 of your papers. It's the requirement for ratification of the appointments of Deputy and Assistant Chief Fire Officers. We're suggesting that that is removed because the appointment is delegated to the Chief Fire Officer, and a ratification process is almost conflicts with that power, if you like, of the Chief Fire Officer to make those appointments. What is not proposed, of course, is that members have no involvement without those processes. You would be informed, as you currently are, of any vacancies, how the recruitment is going, and of any appointments made. That's the first change. Second change is a minor change to the Performance Review Committee. You'll see that at page 42 of your papers. The change is just to reflect what currently happens, namely that that committee meets 3 times a year. It doesn't meet twice a year. So that's just to reflect current practice. The third change is at page 43 of your papers, and this is to your 2 committees relating to senior officers, previously entitled the Disciplinary and Grievance Committees. We think that's not perhaps wide enough. There should be somewhere where the authority can action matters of disciplinary grievance, but also dismissals of senior and statutory officers. That's just been a gap in our documents. I must assure members there are no such issues pending. The Chief Officer team and statutory officers have worked very closely together for a number of years here, and it is a cohesive team. It's just a gap in our documents, which we're asking you to consider filling. And obviously, should the Chief Fire Officer have to dismiss either the Deputy or the Assistant Chief Fire Officer, there has to be an appeal process. So we're suggesting that sits with members. So that's another change that we've made. Then in terms of the Appeals Committee, any decisions made by the committee we've just discussed would sit with the Appeals Committee. So just a few changes there just to capture the full remit of what might happen in senior officer performance issues. And those are all the changes to the terms of reference. Chair, perhaps I could pause there if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Shaheen. Members, do you have any questions for Shaheen? Looks like you're getting off the hook lightly. But I would say all the changes seem either administrative or sensible bits of tidying up, so nothing too contentious there. Thank you very much indeed. No, please carry on.
Then I'll move on to the second set of changes. So that's to the second appendix to your papers, and that's to standing orders. Really just to reflect the name changes of the committees that we've just discussed and that you've agreed, I think. And to reflect the fact that there is no longer an appeals committee that sits within members' remit. In June earlier this year at the Fire Authority, you agreed to remove that and give that to Matthew as Chief Fire Officer, given the complexity and number of pension appeals we're expecting. So those are just those minor name changes, Chair. Happy to take any questions on that one.
Any further questions, members? Splendid. Well, thank you very much indeed, Shaheen. Much appreciated. We are being asked to, first of all, provide views and comments on those appendices, and namely the proposed changes to the terms of reference, standing orders as to meetings, members' allowance schemes, and member and officer protocol, which we've had the opportunity to do. We're also being asked to approve the changes identified by this annual review as highlighted at paragraph 5 below and within those appendices, respectively. And finally, we're being asked to note the update on national work relating to elected members' conduct and why no significant changes have been proposed to our members' code of conduct and code of corporate governance at this time. Shaheen, over to you.
Grateful. Thank you, Chair. There is just one change proposed from your published papers, if I may, Chair, and that's at paragraph 5.1.6, page 78. And this is about declaration of gifts and hospitality. So what was suggested there, if you see the change, is that any gifts accumulating a total, so not just single gifts, accumulating a total of above £25, we were suggesting there that those are declared. On reflection, we think that's unworkable and it's not consistent with what's in your code of conduct either. So it should be single gifts of £25. So, Chair, if I may propose that we revert to the original wording, but remove the reference to £50 and put that as £25, because that's what the LGA suggested we do. That's in your code of conduct based on the LGA's model code. So with that change, Chair, if you...
In line with that guidance and the code of conduct, I'm comfortable with that change. Can I ask if members have any questions or comments on that? Then happy for that to be reflected. Perfect. Moving on then to agenda item number 7, which is the scheme of delegations and contract standing orders. Can I ask that Tamsin Murphy, Assistant Director of Service Transformation, and Shaheen, our Monitoring Officer, introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. So I'm just going to take you through the scheme of delegations, and I'll hand over to Shaheen for the contract standing orders. So we've done a complete root and branches of the scheme of delegations, mainly to modernise the language, but also to align it to our community risk management plan. So if you're familiar with our CRMP, it has 4 strategic aims within that. So operational excellence, community safety excellence, value for money and people. And so we've refreshed the delegations to ensure that they align with our CRMP in those 4 strands to make it clearer. We've also updated the language and just modernised some of those terminologies. In section 6, we've adjusted the financial limits. So previously, in a previous version, we'd taken out some of the financial tables. We've reinstated those because I think that was a mistake, and put those back in. And we've adjusted the financial levels within them to make them more appropriate with modern day spend. We've also added in some additional delegations around the monitoring officer and the chief financial officer, so section 151, for their ability to appoint deputies. We already have appointed deputies. That happened earlier in the year, but it was just in terms of making those appointments as a personal appointment within those delegations. So in terms of the structure of the scheme of delegations, we've put some general principles at the front, so those that are almost the overarching pieces, and then added in the bits that are around the legislations and guidance that we must comply with at the top, and then put it into almost a tabular formation for the chief fire officer, the assistant chief fire officer and the deputy chief fire officer. And then at the bottom, we've added in the monitoring officer and section 151 officer and the financial table at the bottom. What we have done with that financial table is, because of the contract standing orders and the potential for some of those values to change within the contract standing orders, because that's linked to the legislation there, we're proposing that we link to the contract standing orders rather than duplicate and having to bring it through every time there's a change in the exchange rates, etc., to update that there. Happy to take any questions. Appreciate that was a bit of a whistle stop.
Thank you very much there. Members, do you have any questions for Tamsin? Shaheen, do you want to add to that for us? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So in terms of the contract standing orders, that's the second appendix to your paper. This is a new document for the Fire Authority, and it comes about following the Procurement Act, which came into force earlier this year in February. The Act was really designed, or the ambition of the Act was to give the UK post-Brexit freedoms to trade and to encourage local businesses to trade with the public sector more than it hitherto did. Under the Act, all contracting authorities, of which we are one, because obviously we use public money, we're required to publish our rules on how we will procure goods and services from pre-market phase all the way through to contract letting, contract management, and then contract termination and relet. Whilst the route to market process has been simplified by the new legislation, so we don't have to have a rigid spec against which people bid, we can have a more flexible route. What has become slightly more onerous is the reporting regime under it, hence requiring the level of documentation you see. So we're required under the new transparency requirements to publish various notices and ensure transparent reporting on the single portal that we are now obliged to use. So that's why you have it. I know it's a lengthy document, but we have tried to make it as plain English and easily accessible to officers and to contractors as we can. There is one change in the role of members that is captured here, and that is in respect of direct awards. There are sometimes eventualities, usually unforeseen, urgent requirement to procure something. At present, anything above £75,000 we require the chair of the Fire Authority's approval for. We're suggesting, in having spoken and discussed with the chair, that is changed so that up to a certain level, and that's the procurement threshold level of £207,000, that sort of urgent direct award sits with Ursula, the Section 151 officer, and above that sits with the Commercial Governance Board. That's the board that John Anderson as deputy chairs. Myself and Ursula as the stat officers sit on that, as does Tracy Stradling, who's our head of commercial. So in the contract standing orders, we have some strict criteria under which direct awards can be authorised, because it is an exemption outside of the normal procurement process. And we hope that members, you will see that as a strengthening of the checks and balances with all the statutory and relevant officers around the table to justify that sort of direct award. We would envisage bringing each of those direct awards back to the next available fire authority for scrutiny, and should you require anything further than that, we can revisit it. So, Chair, happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaheen. Any questions for Shaheen? Councillor Bywater.
Yeah, thank you, Sheen. You answered my question there, really, in relation to how we scrutinise it when it comes back. So fine. I think, given this is this contract's new, how we going to propose to look at it in the future to see that it's working really, and how will we scrutinise that it's actually fit for purpose? So I think it's fine, but how do we monitor it going forward?
Jane.
Yes, so when we look at the next agenda item, which is our contract strategy, our commercial strategy, I think that's our 3-year programme of how we implement the Act, how we're going to take full advantage of those new flexibilities and freedoms. And one of the things I shall be inviting you to do is to suggest to us what you want us to report back to you on. We are working some of that up, so that the strategy at the end of the 3 years, or perhaps annually, we can report to you on a series of measures that we're saying we will apply and conform to, for you to see if it's actually made any difference to our procurement methods and successes.
Thank you, Shaheen. I think it is going to be critical to make sure that that the Act is implemented in a way which allows us to make decisions more efficiently, to be a bit more flexible with our procurement, and ideally that has some of the intended consequences of supporting local businesses as well. But appreciate that has to be balanced against the priorities of the service as well. Any other questions for Shaheen? Councillor Murphy.
I mean, it's more of a comment that this sounds like a really sensible set of proposals and a good, set of improvements as well. So I welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Any other questions or comments at this stage, members? Matthew.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody that's been involved, Tamsin, Shaheen and Tracy Stradling, who's not here. There's been an absolutely huge amount of work that's gone in to get to this point, and just want to pass my thanks on to them, really, because I appreciate they're not the most exciting documents in the world, but the reality is that they're a necessity, and hopefully they give us good foundations to make the improvements that you describe, Chris and Councillor Bywater.
Thank you very much, Matthew. If there are no further questions at this point, then we are being asked to, first of all, wait a minute, I have moved on agenda item. I'm getting carried away here. We are being asked to simply consider and approve the scheme of delegation at Appendix 1 and the contract standing orders at Appendix 2. And I believe we have consensus across the room and will therefore do so. Now moving on to agenda item number 8, which is our commercial strategy for the period 2026 to 2029. I will hand back to Shaheen, Monitoring Officer and Legal Advisor, to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair. So this report follows on from the matter you've just been considering. And as I was saying earlier, the Procurement Act has given us some flexibilities and opportunities, we think, for the way we procure goods and services. I think it was £12 million we spent in the last strategy period of 3 years on buying goods and services. And so we want to really capture these new flexibilities, which will have impact in the local communities. So key difference between the old regime and the new: the requirement to have the most economically advantageous tender has gone. MEAT, as we used to call it, it's now MAT, most advantageous tender, which means although we have to buy goods and services within the overall umbrella of best value, it's not just financial value that we can take into account when specifying our requirements. That's not to say that we can move away from financial prudent buying decisions, but we have some flexibility within that. So what this strategy does is try to capture how we will do that. So, for example, prioritizing social value contracts and contractors that can demonstrate adding that sort of social value, encouraging the small and medium enterprise sector, as well as the charitable and voluntary sector, to bid for contracts they hitherto wouldn't have been able to because of the size of public sector contracts. So the Act encourages us, and in turn, our strategy encourages us to break down those big contracts into smaller lots, so as to encourage, smaller producers or smaller providers to enter this market, which is really dominated by some of the bigger players commercially. We also focus in the strategy on our sustainability and environmental objectives that you see through the Community Risk Management Plan, and we want to build into any contractual specifications those sorts of factors as being really key. So, Chair, that's all I really want to say about the report. But in terms of your input, we are working up through our Commercial Governance Board what we want to report back to you, but any thoughts you have on any particular measures or any particular areas that you want us to report on, and how this strategy is being implemented and what it's delivering differently, would be happy to take those suggestions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Shaheen. From my perspective, I think the devil is always in the detail with these things, and it's a matter of working out how you're going to balance, when assessing things through the procurement process, those competing priorities, with obviously best value rightly still sitting at the top of the list, but where trade-offs need to be made, how that is done in a sensible way when looking at environmental and ethical considerations as well. So a comment really rather than a question at this stage, but to recognise that there is always going to be a degree of nuance there. Would like to open up though to questions and debate for Shaheen. So please, members, over to you. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for the report, Shaheen. Very good. The question I've got, it states in there, reduce bureaucracy for suppliers. And I'm thinking it's more, how are we going to do that? Because that, to me, is the most critical part of the whole thing. So, and I think going forward, we need to see how this authority has reduced bureaucracy to make it more, to make it easier for those smaller businesses to actually apply for work. We need to let those small businesses know how they're going to be able to do it going forward. So that's my main real question, and just really how we can actually going to achieve that initially, to still making sure that we get the correct level of service and everything that the fire authority requires. Thank you, Chair.
Shane.
Yeah, I think that's a really good challenge, actually, how we reduce bureaucracy. So we have got the single digital platform. So, not lots of different places through which to apply for any tenders. There's a part in the strategy that says we will start doing more pre-market engagement, understanding our local economy and businesses. So I think it would be good to report back to you on how that is going and what we're doing about that. But it is the start of the journey.
That's very helpful, thank you. And I think it will be critical to make sure that those ITTs are going out to a wider pool if we want to see anything new by way of the responses that come back. Any other questions or comments from members? Everyone feeling very pre-Christmassy, clearly. Ready for some mulled wine. So we are being asked here to provide comments on this report and the commercial strategy for the period 2026 to 2029, which we have done, and to approve that strategy for that period as attached at Appendix 1. I think, again, we have a broad consensus across the room, so we'll consider that to be carried. On to agenda item number 9, which is the Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service Employee Engagement Survey 2024, and specifically the action plan update. Can I ask Hayley Douglas, the Assistant Director of Communication and Engagement, to introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members may remember I came in February and presented the initial results of our employee engagement survey that was conducted last October, term 2024. And I said that we would come back to see in 6 months' time how we were doing against the action plan. So this is what this report is. So as a reminder, the survey was conducted, as I say, October 24. We received the outcome in December 24. The response rate for the survey was 56%, and the engagement rate overall was 84%. The survey uses a mix of questions and free text responses, which have enabled us to have a much deeper understanding of things, though that's what's taken time to really analyse the results. We have access to all the anonymised comments that really help us kind of delve into what people are thinking. The action plan is set out in Appendix 1, sets out what we intended to do, and this report now details what we have actually done. So as well as communicating the results and sharing the summary document with all colleagues, we've spent some time proper analysing different aspects of the report. So we gather protected characteristic information from all respondents, and we've gone and cross-matched that data with some of the other questions to see whether there was any trends or anything that was coming out, firstly, with any protected characteristics. Interestingly of note, or the only bit of note there, was that people with a disability generally scored lower than average across all the questions. I questioned this with our supplier who runs the survey for us, and they said that it's exactly the same across every survey that they do. So although I guess in some ways that provided some reassurance, we are taking this to our new inclusion and wellbeing forum. We've only had a couple of meetings so far. It's quite a new evolved forum, and we're going to be discussing just that to see if there's anything that we can do, what some of those issues may be. It may well be neurodiversity, things like that that we need to look into to see if there's more we can do to support people. When we analyse the free text comments by different protected characteristics and looking at what people would change if there was one thing that they could change in the organisation, there were probably 3 areas of concern that kind of just came up from the comments. All 3 of those we delved into a bit more to try, and obviously it's anonymous, we tried to identify where that might be. One we think was a known issue, one had measures put in place, and one was investigated with no further action. So just to reassure you that, where we have seen things that maybe caused concern, they were immediately acted on. A lower scoring area for us was transparency and perceived fairness with promotion processes. Now, we'd already understood that this was an area we needed to look at in the service. There was already a review that was being undertaken by our recruitment team. So anything in the survey that related to promotion processes, so any comments any scores that related to it were fed into the recruitment team for their review, and they form part of that review, and improvements have been put in place so that we can be seen as being a fair, transparent process with promotion processes. We shared the comments and the scores about performance development reviews, so our PDRs, our appraisal system, and general development. We shared all that with the learning and organisational development team for consideration with another project we've got ongoing at the moment, the Fulfilling Potential project, which is looking at appraisals, PDRs, things like that. So that's all been fed into them for their consideration when they're developing improvements. We've briefed all the heads of groups with a deeper analysis of the results at a Leadership Day event. This included the summary of the one thing you would change, where we tried to group it. And then we've also had conversations I've sat down with each of the heads of the on-call, with the whole time, and with control to share their direct results so that they're aware, and certainly they've all taken that on and speaking to their teams and looking to see if they can make those changes that people are suggesting or give feedback. We equally had a look at the questions we were asking about, what people most liked about working for Cambridge Fire and Rescue Service, because for us it's important that we know what people enjoy about working for us. So it's all very well looking at where we can improve, but actually we need to know what people like so we can make sure we maintain those areas as well. So much good stuff was coming out of this. There was so much positive stuff in there about how people felt about our culture as an organisation, with welcoming, with respectful, with sort of family feel, all positive words like this coming out repeatedly in what we were looking at. And the feeling really was kind of people really enjoyed working for us. We've used some of the data to then help with recruitment. So we ran a whole-time recruitment campaign this year, and we took from the whole-time responses about what people liked about working for CFRS. We used some of that in our marketing of the role, promotion of the role on social media, which was really positive because that was comments really coming from people that do the job. And a lot of the sort of employer of choice related data we've shared on our website, and that goes out in our recruitment materials as well for the various jobs that we promote. There was something in the comments that people wanted more events as an opportunity to kind of mix with each other. It's a bit of a post-COVID, more hybrid working sort of one of the downsides of that. I suppose people felt that they wanted to see people more. So we've put on a number of events over the course of this year. We've had a men's health event. We've had a women's development day. We've organised a number of charity fundraiser tea breaks at headquarters, for example. They've all been well attended, and we've had some good feedback from them as well. We discussed this report was taken to our senior leadership team in October, looking at what else we could possibly do. And we've noted that we'll probably take some of it to our leadership day around our next leadership day around what people feel we can do as an organisation to continue to improve. And we'll get that wider thought from our leaders in the organisation, see how we can take that forward. And I guess the last thing for us is that we've really tried to understand what the questions have told us, and where we've come up with something to say, okay, but we've got some data, but it's not meaningful enough to really delve into. It's about us learning about how we can maybe reword the question for when we run it again in October. So the next survey will go out in October 2026. And we will keep a lot of the questions the same so that we can monitor our journey. But there will be a few questions we put in that will be a bit different, that maybe focus on some of the stuff we've done over the last sort of 12 months to really delve into that a little bit more. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Hayley. And can I start by just congratulating you on a really exceptional engagement rate there. I think lots of truisms around being forearmed when forewarned, etc. And I think engaging with your workforce, obviously a fantastic starting point. Councillor Poulton.
Thank you. And thank you for a very interesting survey. I'm just trying to understand the difference between engagement and response. Are there people who didn't respond but they engaged, and how do you know what that number?
Yeah, so the response rate is how many people responded to the survey. the engagement rate is based on a number of questions. So there are 5 core questions, and depending on how people respond to those 5 core questions gives you an engagement score. So the engagement score tells us how engaged our workforce are based on the number of people that completed the survey.
But if they didn't respond, I don't see how you know they engaged.
No, so the engagement score is only based on the engagement score of those who responded to the survey. You're right. The people who didn't respond to the survey, we don't know what they're thinking. We don't have their scores.
Any other questions, members? Councillor Jamil.
Thank you. Can you shed a bit more light about, you said when promotions are decided and so on, so do we not give any feedback? So obviously when a job goes out and then one person gets it, 3 don't, do we not sit there and give them feedback, or is there a different process?
We do give them feedback. They're offered written and verbal feedback as well. We do that. We've strengthened that up as a result of the review that we've done, but it is something that we have always done. But yeah, we did find the recruitment team. It was things like appointing a recruiting manager, so it was all coordinated. We have an independent assessor that sits on the promotion panels now as well. So that again was another way of having that fair and transparent process. So we've put measures like that in place to try and improve that score.
Chair, if I may follow that up.
Please.
So just on that, what were people saying? Was it one of those ones where it was just a tick box, or was it asking them to explain why they felt that they didn't get enough of a feedback, or what?
So that was a question of whether they agreed, disagreed, strongly disagreed, etc. It was a rating, and then where we asked people an open-ended question of is there anything that we could improve in the service, there were a number of people that had commented around promotion processes, so that's how we got some of the comments that people felt strongly about it. So it was things like that. There was nothing really specific in the comments. It was just that people didn't feel it was and this is where it's a bit hard for us to act, and we kind of need that really meaningful feedback and able to make that change. But what it did do is when the recruitment team carried out that review, they did get focus groups of people together and surveyed people, and our people who had been through recent processes, they asked a more in-depth specific questionnaire in relation to it. So the improvement work was done in relation to the recruitment team's review.
Matthew, over to you.
If I could just follow up, I suppose the challenge for us is that whether a candidate is successful or unsuccessful, we need to ensure that actually they feel as though they've had a really, I suppose, rich and I'll say joyful experience, in the sense of they get good feedback at the end of it. Now, it may be at the end of it they're not successful, but actually as long as they come away still feeling engaged and they've got somewhere else to build upon or to build upon, that's really where we need to get to. And I think what we've tried to do with all of these measures that Hayley's described is get to that place. I'm not saying we're going to get there straight away, because there'll always be people that are disgruntled when they go through a position and perhaps are unsuccessful. I think that's the reality of what we're dealing with. What we want to be sure is actually it's as transparent as it can possibly be. So.
Thank you, Matthew. Any other questions or comments from members? So we are on this occasion simply being asked again to review and provide comments on the work undertaken against the action plan attached to Appendix 1 and as detailed in paragraph 6, which we have now done. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 10, which is the Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy Mid-Year Review Report 2025 to 26. And I believe we have our stand-in Ursula here to introduce the report.
Yes, thank you. I also like to introduce Josh Muir, who's sitting at the end table there. So if you ask any questions that I don't have the answers to, Josh is going to help me out. He's the deputy, your deputy 151 officer now. So just welcome Josh. hopefully I can make a good fist of it though, and we'll see where we go. Just in terms of the first report that I'm introducing, Treasury Management Strategy. So it's a mid-year update. Effectively, what it's setting out is how we're doing in terms of borrowing. Well, there's no additional debt. The service hasn't taken on any additional debt so far this year. It also talks about what they call a CFR, so it's a capital finance requirement. Effectively, that's the credit limit. I'll say that's the credit limit. In credit card terms, that would be your upper limit, what you can borrow up to or against. We are nowhere near that. We haven't adjusted it for this year or in the mid-year, so actually we're well within those boundaries, which is obviously a good thing. Our overall debt, we're paying around just over 3.5% to finance that debt, which again is pretty comparable. Hopefully members will have seen today interest rates have been cut again, but we are still paying below that current level of 3.75%. So in terms of debt performance, I would say that's relatively positive. In terms of our investments, we have just over £14 million worth of investments at the moment. A large element of those investments is money that's been given to us by government to cover pensions. Now, I won't go into too much detail, but effectively we have, on the back of the court ruling around Sargent and Matthews, there was an age discrimination claim brought. It was found in favour of the representative bodies, if you like, so our firefighters, and it's going to cost some money to put it right, to retrospectively put that right in terms of compensation and to put them back to where they should have been if the changes hadn't been introduced. So on the basis of that, been given a load of money, that's taken a while to pay that back to members, and as a result we have been able to invest and benefit perhaps from that money that's been given to us by central government, and at the moment we're getting a return of just over 4%. So it's a good news story as things stand at the moment, but again you'd expect to see that level of investment start to come down quite dramatically, hence the reason why it's all in short-term investments. Okay, so it's all invested in the short term as we start to work through those claims. And I think that's probably as much as I want to say at the moment. Any questions? We'll see how I go.
Councillor Gardner.
Sorry. On page 76, 8.4, I wonder if you could give us an update on the sale of the former Huntingdon Fire Station.
I will start, and then I may look to my learning colleague to my left to perhaps build upon it. So it has dragged on. Councillor Gardner, you will appreciate that we sold it some considerable time back, subject to planning. We are working with certainly our district council colleagues to try and push that through. Again, along with the developer, but there have been a number of challenges that have put in our way, and as a result, we have had to. And Stu will come in here in a second, but we've had to extend the period for them to achieve a successful planning consent. We expect that to be early in the new year, is my understanding. Stu, is there anything you want to add?
In terms of dates, the extension's until the 30th of June. So they've got an additional extension. So providing the developer was in the planning process by the end of December this year, there was a clause in the contract to extend by 6 months. So they've enacted that clause effectively. We're hoping for a positive outcome, and having spoken to colleagues at HDC, they're hoping for a positive decision on the site. It is costing us quite a considerable amount of money. We have got a lot of damage to the site, and the police have been there and working with us to try and deal with the antisocial behaviour we're seeing there. So a decision sooner rather than later would be better. HDC are aware of that as well, because I think their teams that are working in different departments are also seeing the disruption from the site. So hopefully, like Matt says, early in the new year, we should get a decision and be able to move that site on and hand it over to successful developer, fingers crossed.
Oh, I'm on. And then following on, the houses that back onto the site, there's 4. They are in not a very good state, as you can appreciate, because we haven't invested in them for a number of years now. We will look to be selling those as well. So as soon as we get this sale complete, we did it in 2 lots, and then we'll go with the 4 houses at the back. I'll say that should be much more straightforward. But probably, yeah, yes.
Not on record. Any other questions, members? Councillor Jamil.
Just to follow on for that, so the receipt from the sale goes back into our capital program, or where does that end up?
So the next paper is actually built into next year's, as in the year. I'm looking at Josh now. Is it 26, 27 or 27, 28, Josh? 26, 27. We're expecting the capital receipt to come into the next financial year, and we're going to use that to finance the capital part of the capital program. Okay.
Any other questions, members? Okay, thank you very much. We are being asked to simply note and provide comment on the mid-year review on Treasury management for the current year, as detailed within this report, which we have done. Thank you for your questions. Moving on to agenda item number 11, which is the draft medium-term financial plan for the year 2026 to 27 through to 2029 to 30. And I believe we'll be coming back to you again, Matthew, in the first instance.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the draft budget that's presented here, we like all local authorities, we received our medium-term financial settlement yesterday afternoon. We are still working through the detail of what that means for us. On the face of it, it looks, again, there's some wood here, that it looks relatively positive for us as a fire service. However, I'll predicate it because actually government have been quite clear, certainly with us, that it's predicated on taking the maximum council tax increase. Okay, so our core spending power is predicated on us taking the £5, which is now obviously a change to, if you look at our precept capping limit for the next 3 years. That is effectively what is being suggested for us to achieve what they're seeking in terms of core spending power. So that's the caveat, and again we need to work that through. For Cambridgeshire, it does appear that there has been some recognition of all, certainly for Cambridgeshire Fire, of the 10-12 years worth of, if you like, how can I put this, reductions that we've had to endure. The population data has been updated. So, and we went through it with this morning in Vision 30. The population stats they're now using are relatively up to date. Okay, so they're not from 2014 anymore. They are from 2000, hopefully, and 24. So there's some benefit to that for us. We need to work through what that absolutely means. But it does appear that we are finally starting to make some headway in terms of that funding. So that said, so what does this draft budget do? Well, based on obviously it does ask for £5. It does start to deal with some of the retrospective challenges that we've faced. So we've got additional firefighters built into this budget, albeit only 6, but there are 6 firefighters built into this budget as it stands at the moment. The weekend working for on-call, which again has provided significant resilience for us over the last year, that is built into this budget again, based on the fire. So we are starting to build again from where we were previously. Some other things, again, just in terms of why can't we grow faster if you're taking the £5? Well, we've lost Suffolk now, so the impact of Suffolk is built into this budget, so we've had to close that gap. We had last year the NJC introduced a new banding system for our on-call firefighters. That has cost us £600,000. The full year effect of that is built into this budget, so we've caught up. And we also had the pay award that was actually greater than we budgeted. that's built in. So what this budget is doing is hopefully bringing us to a solid place, notwithstanding the fact we don't know what next year's pay award will be. Okay. So notionally, we're looking around the 3% mark, but it could be more. Hope it could be less. So that's where this is taking us to. So what we're proposing and the recommendation is we go to consult on the £5, and then obviously we'll bring you the detail back in February with the detailed capital programme and all of the detail that we know from the settlement. We can introduce it at that point. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed, Matt. And it's obviously really good news to see those multiple decades of real-term funding decreases finally being addressed. I'm very aware that it's something that you and the wider team have been working on at a national level for quite some time. So thank you for all your hard work there. Members, do you have any questions for Matt? We are a quiet bunch this afternoon. You want to ask one to yourself?
No, I think I just had some reassurance. Ursula and the team, they really do go through this with a fine-tooth comb absolutely every year. They put all of our managers and budget holders through a process to ensure that actually they justify the resources that they need, and they're not just asking for things on a whim. There really is justification. So I think this is a minimum level budget. There still is no, we're not building fat into this budget here. This is just putting us to a point where actually we're starting to gradually get back. And again, when we talked this morning around Vision 30, that minimum level that we believe we may need to get to, when we are starting to build towards that. We're not there, but we're starting to build towards it.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Jamil.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Bywater will testify as well, Matthew, that we've had too many bad years and we've had good year. And I just think on behalf of yourself as Chair of the Fire Authority, I think we should write to our region's MPs, who I know have put time and effort in to make sure that this region got its fair share of funding. And I think it would be good for building bridges for the future as well, because we need to maintain this. This is just the start of the process. We need to make sure that funding for all of us here, whether it's the Fire Authority, Police Authority, and for the councils to get a fair share of the money that was being spent elsewhere and it stays in the region. I just think it'd be a good thing if we just write to him and thank him on behalf of the authority.
I fully support recognising successes where we can. We don't get the chance to do so anywhere near as much as I would like, and I think the hard work of everyone involved does need to be recognised. So I would wholeheartedly support that, and I get the impression it has the support of the room as a whole. So thank you all for that, and thank you again, Matthew, to you and your team for all your hard work on this. It's certainly recognised that we are not starting here from the baseline we want to be at. We're starting from behind the 8 ball a little bit and having to make our way back up the pitch, to mix many metaphors. But thank you for everything you do. Yes, Councillor Bywater.
Yeah, just want to echo that. I think this is about my 13th year going through a budget, and yes, I absolutely endorse. I have every confidence in the numbers that are sat here before me, and the good work that the team do. I think I've said it every year that I'm not keen on increasing taxes for our residents, but I think the fire service is an exemption to that. Really, I think Councillor Murphy, I think you mentioned in relation to of it as being an insurance policy for our residents, really, and I think it's exactly that. And I think £4.95 over a year is a matter of pence, isn't it? I know it's the principles to some people, but I actually see this as protecting our residents by having a good and efficient fire service. So yeah, I'm happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Bywater. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, I think I would really endorse that, and I think in writing to our MPs, we're just continuing to engage with them, because we are, on a, I hate to use this phrase, but we are on a journey, and we, and we've started to turn things around, and it's moving in the right direction. It's right to share thanks with us, our MPs who have fought for us, but also, you know, to ensure that we can still keep engaging with them as we progress further on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Wholeheartedly agreed. Councillor Navarro.
Yeah, all for keep engaging, and also for those that attended the seminar earlier. I'm quite impressed with the authority and what they are doing. They're very forward thinking in just the systems that we are developing, and a little bit of extra cash, if we could, yes, write to our MPs and put this authority at the forefooting rather than chasing budgets and trying to squeeze money. There is important work going on there. It's the data they're generating, the things that they are doing. That is going to save money and make the service more efficient in the long term, and probably serve other authorities. They could reach out, and I think that is the plan. So I'm all for the thanking and engaging with our MPs, but probably also just keep highlighting the huge opportunities that this authority are carving and they are working for. So I am all for that too.
Thank you, Councillor Navarro. Again, I wholeheartedly agree. I don't know if it's the way that you in the service feel yourselves, but you are a centre of R&D, really leading from the front in this sector, and have the opportunity to be an exporter of talent, skills and experience across the country, and it's something you should be very proud of. Any other questions or comments from members? Well, here we are being asked to review and provide comment on the contents of the report and the draft medium-term financial plan attached to Appendix 1. But we are also, as you've noted, being asked to agree the proposed level of precept to go out to consultation of £4.95 for a Band D property as per paragraph 6. Again, I think I see broad consensus around the room, so we'll consider that to be passed. And thank you again, Matthew, for your time. Moving on to agenda items number 12A and B, where we have the minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meetings held on July 2nd and October 8th for noting, which we duly do. And agenda items 13A and B, where we have the minutes of the Policy and Resources Committee meetings of July 9th and October 22nd, also for noting, which we duly do. We will now move on to agenda item number 14, which is the exclusion of press and public for the next segment of today's agenda. In order to discuss the following item, we do need to move the meeting into private session, excluding the press and public. Members, we are therefore asked to resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following item contains exempt information under paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended, and that it would not be in the public interest for this information to be disclosed. And this is information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information, and information relating to any action taken or to be taken in connection with the prevention, investigation, or prosecution of crime. Members, do you agree with the proposal to move this into private session? Thank you. Again, we have broad consensus, and this public meeting is now closed. We will need to pause for a couple of minutes just to ensure the live stream has stopped. So I think this is probably a good moment to take a brief 5-minute comfort break and find ourselves back here at 3:15. Thank you very much, folks.